Hi, I'm Paul, and in this video, we'll be talking about the shocking story of Kelsey Turner, a 24-year-old model who was involved in a horrific crime. I found everything that happened interesting, and the sentencing was very controversial, so I wanted to share it with you and hear your opinion. I hope you find the video informative, and let's get started with all the details. Kelsey was born on May 5, 1993 in Virginia, United States. Since she was little, she was described as a very cheerful, fun, and beautiful person. She had good grades in school, many friends, and was very popular. When she was in college, she realized that thanks to her beauty, she could get whatever she wanted: men, attention, and above all, money. Upon graduating from college, Kelsey moved to California to pursue her dream of being a professional model. Little by little, she started getting modeling jobs and thousands of followers on Instagram, where she called herself Bad Barbie. Kelsey seemed to be living the dream. In 1919, she had more than 100,000 followers on Instagram. She was invited to red carpets, important events, and appearances in famous magazines like Playboy. Kelsey's dream was to be a runway and luxury brand model, but circumstances led her to model for adult magazines. She fell in with the wrong crowd, started using substances, and getting involved with violent men. Kelsey had several boyfriends, but they all seemed to be the same. She kept following the same patterns. At first, they treated her super well and were very attentive to her, but later they would become obsessive and jealous. Her relationships were short and toxic. Kelsey was in her early 20s when she got pregnant and gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. The baby's father supported her at first, but after he was born, he realized how much responsibility being a parent was, and he didn't like it anymore. He didn't want to give Kelsey money, he didn't support her in raising the child, and as if that weren't enough, he also started physically assaulting her. Kelsey asked her mom for help. She told her to move to California with her so she could leave the baby's father. Kelsey's mother agreed, and they reported the man. He was arrested for domestic violence, and things started to get better. Kelsey stopped using substances, stopped hanging out with dangerous people, and living with her mom helped her in many ways, but especially with raising the baby, so she could focus on her work. But a modeling career is usually very short, and although it seems glamorous, it is poorly paid. Kelsey needed money, so she signed up for a sugar baby website. That's how she met Thomas, a 71-year-old doctor. He was a child psychiatrist. He's described as a kind and generous man. His patients adored him. He was highly respected in the community and considered an exemplary man. Despite his age, he didn't want to retire because he loved working with children and helping them. Thomas had been married, had children, and seemed to have the perfect family. But in 2001, his wife asked for a divorce after he had been unfaithful to her on several occasions with various different women who were much younger than him. I'm going to take a quick detour, but it's something I want to mention, and that is that in the reports I saw and in the interviews and articles, they always portrayed this man as an exemplary man, as very good and kind-hearted. And I don't doubt that he was good at his job, I don't doubt that he was respected in society, but I don't think he is an exemplary man or a very good man if he cheats on his wife, because that means he is unfaithful, that he has no respect, and doesn't care about hurting people he claims to love. Returning to Thomas, after the divorce, he began a relationship with another woman named Judy, who was a friend of his for years. Judy was also divorced and had 4 children whom Thomas helped raise. In 2019, they had been dating for 17 years. Their children were already independent adults, and they lived together, but they never remarried. Judy speaks wonders of Thomas. She says he was a very generous man, so much so that there were women who took advantage of him. Judy was aware that Thomas went out with women much younger than him and gave them money, but Judy said it was just because Thomas wanted to support them, when in reality, Thomas was paying for a service. In 2017, 69-year-old Thomas began dating 22-year-old Kelsey. Kelsey told him about her financial situation, that she was a single mother, that she had suffered abuse in her previous relationship, and that currently her baby's father was in prison. And she also told him that she was responsible for supporting her mom and her child. Thomas became Kelsey's sugar daddy. He gave her around $3,000 a month and paid the rent for the place where she lived with her mom. He also gave her luxurious gifts and, from time to time, extra money. They saw each other at least once a week, and Judy, Thomas's girlfriend, was aware of what was happening and accepted it. Although we don't really know how aware Judy was of what was going on because Thomas lied to her. He told her they were just friends, that they only met up for coffee or a meal, and that he wanted to keep seeing Kelsey because she was in a difficult situation and he wanted to support her. But surely Judy suspected that his relationship with a woman 47 years younger than him wasn't that innocent. At the end of 2018, Kelsey moved to Las Vegas, but she continued her relationship with Thomas, whom she would see when she visited California or when he traveled to Las Vegas. And it seems to me that Kelsey's mom and her baby stayed in California. I'm not 100% sure, I couldn't confirm it, but they lived in separate houses, and different houses. Kelsey lived in one, and her mom lived in the other with the baby, so Thomas was paying double rent for Kelsey, the one for the house in California, and the one in Las Vegas, where she lived with a roommate named Diane Penna. But moving to Las Vegas complicated Kelsey's life once again. She went back to substances and toxic men. She had a boyfriend named John, who was involved in a gang, and although at first he treated her like a queen, later the problems began. He was also jealous, possessive, and unfortunately, he physically assaulted her. Her neighbors mentioned that it was common to hear the couple fighting. They argued all the time, and in early 2019, one of her neighbors had to call emergency services because they were hearing John assaulting Kelsey. John was arrested, but they let him out shortly after, and Kelsey went back to him. Kelsey spoke with Thomas every day and told him that she was doing very badly. John would take all her money, mistreat her, and she was afraid. She wanted to leave him, but he would threaten her and she didn't know what to do. Thomas told her he would come to visit her because he was worried about her. He told Judy he was going to Las Vegas for a few days, and Judy, worried, told him, "Don't go. Everything she tells you is lies. She only tells you those kinds of things so you'll feel sorry for her." And John replied, "Maybe it is a lie, but I have to find out for myself." Judy accepted, but she asked him to please just go there and back and not stay the night there. Thomas arrived in Las Vegas on March 1st, 2019. He went out to eat at a fancy restaurant with Kelsey and then to her house. Thomas was extremely surprised to see the state that both Kelsey and her house were in. I imagine that with everything Kelsey told him, he was expecting to see her with marks, bruises, and he imagined the house was going to be a disaster, but Kelsey seemed to be physically fine, and her house was impeccable. Afterward, Thomas called Judy and told her, "You were right, it was all a lie. She is a manipulator who just wants to get money out of me." Judy told him, "I told you so, but please come home immediately, I have a bad feeling." Thomas replied, "Relax, don't worry, everything is going to be fine. I'll stay for the whole weekend, but this will be the last time I come and see her." Here's another pause. Is it true that Kelsey was manipulating him? I don't know. How much of it is manipulation if the things she was telling him were true? She really was in a toxic relationship. She really was with someone who abused her physically and emotionally. And it's not like she was taking advantage of Thomas because she was providing him with the service. That she only wanted him for his money? Well, yes, in the same way that Thomas only wanted her for her looks. They had a relationship that benefited both of them. On March 2nd, Kelsey and her roommate Diane went to work as waitresses. Thomas picked them up when their shift ended, and while he was driving, Kelsey asked for his phone to put the directions into the GPS. But she took the opportunity to check his messages. That was when she realized that Thomas and her mom had been messaging each other and were not necessarily bad-mouthing Kelsey, but expressing their concern about the decisions she was making. For example, they said they didn't think it was right that she was living in Las Vegas, they didn't like that she wasn't visiting her son, and that she was using substances again. Kelsey was upset about those messages and confronted Thomas, who said it came from a good place. He was just worried about her and wanted to help her. He also told her that if she didn't change her lifestyle, he would stop giving her money. Kelsey was very agitated, and everything got worse when they arrived home and found John, Kelsey's boyfriend, waiting for her. Imagine the reaction of her boyfriend, who was a possessive, jealous, and violent man, upon seeing her arrive with another man. John was aware that she had a sugar daddy, but he didn't care because it was a long-distance relationship. He thought it was just a relationship where they sent photos and messages, but not that they saw each other in person. John and Kelsey started arguing. Thomas wanted to get away from the drama and went into the guest room. A few moments later, John burst into the room and, using a baseball bat, hit Thomas in the head, causing him to fall to the floor. Diane, horrified, stepped in between them to stop him from hurting him further and begged them to take him to the hospital. John was acting indifferent, Diane was crying, and Kelsey seemed to be in shock. They put Thomas in the car, and Kelsey told Diane, "Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. We're going to take him to a doctor, but please go inside the house, go to the room, and clean up the red stains left from the blows." Diane agreed, and before leaving, Thomas said to her, "You know they're going to kill me, right?" Diane was crying, but she obeyed Kelsey and went into the house to clean up the scene. A few minutes later, she heard Kelsey say, "Finish the job." And then she heard some duds. Diane went down immediately, but by the time she arrived, it was already too late. Thomas was lying on the floor in a red puddle, and John was holding a gun in his hand. He didn't fire it. It was a firearm. He didn't shoot it, but he used it to beat Thomas's head until he took his life. John wrapped the body in sheets, put it in the trunk of Thomas's car, and the three of them drove to the desert where they abandoned the car with the body inside. Afterward, they fled the scene. Thomas was supposed to return home on Sunday, but he didn't board his flight. Judy was worried because she couldn't get in touch with him, and even though she had a bad feeling, she decided to wait one more day. But by Monday, she still hadn't heard from him. She called his office to see if he had shown up for work because she knew Thomas would never miss work, and his secretary informed her that he hadn't shown up and that she couldn't get in touch with him either. After that, Judy called emergency services. The officers went to Kelsey's home, where they were surprised to see the state of the house. They left the door unlocked, the windows open, and there was food in the kitchen going bad. They didn't put it in the frames. There were clothes in the rooms that looked disheveled. Everything indicated that they had fled in an emergency. They found red stains and collected evidence to analyze it. Given the state of the place, the officers knew this wasn't a case of a disappearance, but something much worse. On March 7th, a driver passing through the desert saw a blue Mercedes, and without getting too close, he could imagine what it was. So he called the authorities. As we know, the events took place in Las Vegas, and sadly, people abandoning cars or bodies in the desert is not unusual. Being a desert, days, weeks, or even months could pass before someone finds it. The detectives arrived and immediately noticed a strong, unpleasant smell. One of the windows was also broken, as if to make it look like it had been stolen. And upon opening the trunk, they found the body in an advanced state of decomposition due to the high temperatures. Thomas's head showed severe trauma. His skull was crushed, and he had wounds on his arms because he tried to protect himself from the blows. The car belonged to Thomas, but it was registered in Kelsey's name because he paid for it, but she was the one who used it. During the investigation, it was confirmed that the red stains found in Kelsey's house matched Thomas's DNA. Upon reviewing the surveillance cameras in the area, they were able to see how, in the early hours after the incident, the car was taken away with the body inside. There was another car following them. I think it was John's, but I couldn't confirm it. So, two people, Kelsey and Diane, were in one car, and John was in the other. They headed to the desert, where they abandoned the blue car and escaped in the other vehicle. On March 6th, John, Diane, and Kelsey returned home, where one of their neighbors saw them taking out large bags, likely containing their belongings, and said they looked anxious and in a hurry. Credit card records showed that John bought cleaning supplies at Walmart on March 3rd. And security camera footage confirms that the three of them were always together. The search for the three suspects began, but the officers still hadn't released their posters or faces or photographs, nothing, because they still couldn't make it public. Even though they had that evidence, it wasn't like physical evidence, they were just suspects. Until March 17th, when Diane walked into the police station and, while crying, asked for a deal. She was turning herself in. She would confess everything, but she wanted protection. With Diane's testimony, arrest warrants were issued against Kelsey and John. Their photographs were published in media outlets all across the United States. On March 21st, someone provided an anonymous tip saying they saw Kelsey in California. That same day, she was arrested. She was hiding at one of her relatives' houses and had dyed her hair to try not to be recognized. John remained a fugitive until April 17th, when he was located at a casino in Las Vegas. He wasn't even hiding. He was just calmly gambling when he was suddenly arrested. During interrogations, John and Kelsey blamed each other. She said it was John who committed the act and forced her to get rid of the evidence. John said he did it because Kelsey manipulated and forced him. The 3 people involved were in jail while awaiting trial, which was postponed multiple times. At first, it was because shortly after Kelsey was arrested, she discovered she was pregnant and had health complications, so they postponed the hearings until she gave birth to a baby girl. The baby was born in jail, but custody is with her grandmother, who is now taking care of both babies. After that, the trial kept getting delayed because the pandemic happened. The courts closed for a while, until finally, in 2022, Diane had her trial. She pleaded guilty to complicity and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. Besides, she had already been behind bars for almost 4 years waiting for her trial. Diane was always open to cooperating, and when they asked her why she committed the act, she said it was because she was afraid. She was being threatened, but she never wanted to get involved, and that's why she turned herself in. John pleaded guilty to homicide and was sentenced to 45 years in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 18 years. Kelsey accepted a plea deal where she admits her guilt but maintained her innocence, saying that she is aware of her participation, but she was not the one who planned it, nor the one who took his life. It was also revealed that Thomas gave her more than $300,000 during their 2-year relationship, including rents, the car, and other gifts, but it is believed that it could have been more money. On January 10, 2023, almost 4 years after committing the crime, she was sentenced to 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Kelsey was crying during the hearing, but she never revealed the reason. This is all the information on the case. Honestly, I was really surprised by everything that happened. It escalated way too much. I'm glad they caught those responsible. And it's a sentence that caused a lot of controversy because Kelsey participated in the act, and 10 years in prison for taking a man's life is very little. But I personally don't think Kelsey was the one who took his life. The one who committed the act was John, who had a history of violence. Many paint Kelsey as if she were a manipulator and that she took her sugar daddy's life because he wasn't going to give her money anymore. But I think that narrative doesn't make sense, because if the only thing Kelsey cared about was money, why take the life of a man who was supporting her? How would that benefit her? Obviously, her involvement was wrong, but it seems very clear to me that the real motive was that her toxic and possessive boyfriend had a fit of jealousy and attacked Thomas. Looking at the evidence, it seems much more reasonable to me. I don't want it to seem like I'm defending Kelsey, because I'm not. It just seems a bit unfair to me that she's being blamed for everything when the one who committed the act was her boyfriend. It's good that they gave him a longer sentence. I hope they don't release him early and that he serves his full sentence.